your steps. Get back to your fitness goals now that you're retired. That's number one. Things you've neglected for so long. Now you're not going to anymore. You're just going to relax. Relax. Upcoming show ideas. Definitely Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That was a viewer request, so I've got to get to that. Ooh, bear markets. You have to talk about bear markets and how they're different than bull markets. And most importantly today, you need to figure out your returns over the past 13 years and record that number in your end of year big pick. You can do that today. All right. Let's see. Relax. Relax. You're just getting older and hopefully richer at the same time. I think it's so interesting to take a look at your return of your portfolio and record the end of your percent and back into your rate of return over the course of however many years it is. Like right now, you've been recording since 2012, so it's 13 years. So you need to figure out what is your average rate of return for those 13 years. And you can do that every year. But first, before you go there, bear markets. What is the difference between a bear market and a bull market? A bull market is when the stock market continues to go up, and we have more bull markets over the course of many years than bear markets. Bear markets, I'm pretty sure, are defined as years in the market where it goes down 20% or more. Not many of those. But you did record that the average number of months for a bear market from the top to the bottom is just over 1 year. 14 months since 1945. Now, in the Great Depression of 1929, the market lost 86%. It took 34 months to recover. Wow, not until 1954. Hopefully we won't see another Great Depression. Although, you know what? On YouTube, some people are saying that there's going to be a depression. I doubt it. People like Goldman Sachs are saying 2025 should be really great, that the S&P 500 should be, what was it? 7,000, I think. Somewhere in there. In 1973, when you were just a little kid, there was a recession that lasted 21 months, or a bear market, I should say. 48% loss. And then, of course, in the Great Recession of 2008, which you definitely lived through, 17 months from October of 2007 to March of 2009. I'll never forget that. It was a 56% loss. Yeah, to think that the S&P 500 in 2020 was 2386, and now we're up to the 5 or 6 thousands. So much growth. Just in 4 years, too. You know, we really haven't had a significant bear market in a long time. And I think you may have talked about sequence of return risk as far as going into early retirement with your viewers. Sequence of return risk, just briefly, remember, means, like, Evan, right now you're retired. 30 years is going to happen. In those 30 years, obviously there's going to be returns in the market. We don't know if in the first 10 years it's really good, positive numbers, or down numbers. And we don't know what's going to happen in the middle. We don't know what's going to happen in the end. But let's say we take those 30 numbers, whatever they are. Like if we go 30 years back. When you retire, again, we don't know what that 30-year return is going to be, but if you just invert it like this, and change the sequence of those returns, not the numbers themselves, but just flip them around. Somebody that retires like me with 1.6 as a net worth, if we have really bad returns in the first 10 years, that can significantly impact the longevity of the portfolio more than if you have really good returns in the first 10 years. In other words, somebody could run out of money if they have bad returns in the beginning as opposed to at the end. But you can't change the sequence of returns, like I'm going to talk about here in a few minutes, which is why you have cash on the side. Because the sequence of return risk assumes that you're going to be taking money out of those investments, that 4% of the original balance, regardless of what the balance is at that time. But, as I'm going to discuss right now, your plan, Evan, is that you will have cash on the side where you do not sell any investments to get through those 10 years. If in the beginning you have bad returns, which, you know, given the fact that we have not had a significant bear market since 2008, it's more likely that that could happen in the first 10 years of your retirement, which could be potentially bad for early retirees or retirees just in general. Good for younger people that are still working because they can continue to dollar cost average in the market when the market is down, and that's what they want, which was good for you in 2009 and up. All right, so what I want to do before I get out there and go for a walk is I forgot to record my 2024 return and add it to my Excel document over here, which is called a big pick document for the returns. Which is right here. Here's your big pick document. Okay. What you have on your laptop is the same as this piece of paper. I think you've shared this with your viewers before. But now, because 2024 is over, we're going to add a new number and divide it by 13 this time to get to your average rate of return, regardless of your asset allocation at that time. And your viewers can do the same. You'll have to share this with them because they need to know how well they're doing from one year to the next. This also helps figure out, if you're retired, where you should pull your money from for the next year, because you're going to live in arrears. You're going to base your spending in retirement for the following year based on the outcome of the previous year. How can you go wrong? Okay. Focus, Evan, focus. All right, so when you did this analysis before for 12 years, the number you got was 104.62 because you added up all the numbers of your return, divided it by 12, and you got an average of 8.71 for 12 years. So now we have to add 2024, which was, remember, a gain of 12%, and divide that by 13. See, you know what? Let's add up those numbers again just to make sure, rather than taking the 104.62, which you could probably do, but let's go ahead and add those all up again and divide it by 13. Okay, so here we go. 12%. That was 2012. 2013, 23.71. 2014, 7.4. 2015, 0.77. 2016, 7.24. Did I say that wrong? I think I said it right. 2016, 2017, 15. Now, 2018, you had a negative 3.5, so you're going to add 3.5 negative. 2019, 19%. 2020, 11.5. Plus 2021, 11.5. 2022, you lost 15%, 1.5. So plus 15 negative. 2023, 15 positive. And there's your 104.62 for 12 years. Now we're going to add the 13th year, which was 12. So you get 116.62 divided by now 13 years. Your average rate of return for 13 years, 8.97. Which is pretty much the same, obviously, as the previous year. You add some to it, but you divide it by 13 rather than 12. So, Evan, why are you doing this? Why are you recording your return, and why do you encourage your subscribers to record their return every year? The reason why I've been doing this is because people will say all the time, oh, your portfolio will probably do really well. You'll probably get 7, 8, or 9% per year, or whatever it is. Or, you know how they also say over time, how well does the stock market do, etc. This also takes into account where your money was at the time that you recorded it. You were not always 60% stocks, 40% bonds like right now. In 2012, it was probably 80% stocks, maybe even 90% stocks, 10% bonds. But regardless, the percent of your portfolio was the percent of your portfolio. That will never change. So you add these all up. And by the way, this is a rough calculation, by the way. Yeah, obviously. But in my mind, it helps me see that even though I've had 2 years of negative percents, overall, my portfolio did well in 13 years, which also kind of ties back to the whole bear market methodology, that there are more bull markets every year or for the years than there are bear markets where there's losses of 20% or more. And even some of these little dips in the market that you recorded were not truly big bear markets. I think a bear market, they say, has to be 20% loss or more in the S&P 500. It's been a while since we've had that. Which means in the next 10 years or so, that may happen. So here's what's significant for you and for people that go into retirement. I think it's a good idea to record these numbers like you did. Share that with your subscribers. Have them record their numbers, because over time, while they're still working and they're putting money into their investments, they can see how well they are actually doing from a percentage perspective. And so let's just take 1 year as an example. Remember, 2024, you were not retired in 2024, but let's say that you were. Remember you said that you had other of 219,000 in a previous episode? $219,000, but you put in 66,000, so let's take that out. The other number for 2024 was 123. Unrealized gains, dividends, and interest, if you were retired. Now that might be a lower number because you put in money of that 66,000. Let's say it was just 100,000. Or 110,000. And now you're forecasting for what you're going to spend if you were retired for the following year. That's the methodology, Evan, that you have to get into. You're going to look at the return of the year in retirement, for example, 2025, and base your spending in 2026 on the results of 2025. Rather than the other way around, where you're selling shares throughout the year and then you're like, oh, the market goes down. So for example, if you were retired, well, actually, here's what's interesting. You could, even though you're not doing this, in 2024, that was the number. Could you take 30,000 away from that, or actually 25, because that's what you're going to spend the first year, but you could spend up to 30,000 if you want, or even 50. But if you take 30 away, you still have 80,000 left over, which means the principal of your portfolio did not change. And so you would feel comfortable spending that 30 from that number in 2025. However, you decided, because you've got so much going on right now where you're moving your money around, you might go to Fidelity, Vanguard, just use the cash for now for the first year. Use this methodology for your spending for 2026. In other words, if 2025 is an amazing year, if we're sitting here 1 year from today, and I'm looking at my numbers, which we will do, and if 2025 returns, let's say 10% or something, and you look at that number, the balance, the other, then take your 30,000 or whatever spending you need for 2026 from that number and leave your cash on the side. It makes no sense to spend your cash for the following year if the previous year was a positive bull market return. Only use your cash if, let's say, for example, what if you had, like, for example, in 2022, you lost 15%. I don't know what the... Yes, I do. Yeah, here we go. Not only did you record the balances, the percents, you recorded the balances. The end of 2021, you had 1,151,000. At the end of 2022, because you lost 15%, you ended with 1,040,000. So you lost $111,000 on paper. You weren't selling shares, so who cares, right? But if you were retired, your 2023 spending would have been cash because you lost in 2022. Those shares went down in value. That's why it's a loss of 111,000. Don't sell those shares when they're down. Wait for it to come back up. Remember you said bear markets take an average of 14 months to recover? Well, if it's 14 months or 24 months, whatever it is, 2 years, you're going to use your cash. The cash that you have of the 175,000 without selling shares during that year. This is why I do this. For myself and to share with others is that, do you remember, Evan, you were so frustrated when you were younger because people said, oh, Evan, don't worry about it. Your portfolio is going to be fine. You're going to return this number, that. It gets so confusing. I wanted to see balances. Let me know. I want to look at my money from what is actually there and not these balances. Now, when you're growing wealth, that's perfectly fine. Look at the numbers while you're growing your wealth. Good. But now, when you start considering going into retirement, whether that's early or not, this gave me nearly 100% confidence in that I could quit my job and know that I have the money, and I would know when to deploy the money to get the income that you need in the year in which you need it, based on the success or failure of the market in the previous year. Is basically why I have been recording these numbers, again, so that you can feel confident in retiring when the time is right for you. And the time for you, Evan, was now. All right, so mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the wealthiest one of all? You are, and you have to start believing that. All right, so you need to get out there and walk, Evan.